Thank you, Your Worship. As Your Worship has pointed out, this is about addressing the allowances and expenses for elected members. The principal issue in this matter is the trade-off between efficiency and equity, i.e. what's the quickest, cheapest way to address the problem and what's the fairest way to address the problem. And the very fairest way to address the problem is the most expensive way because it involves everybody having to keep track of a great deal of bits of paper and then vast amounts of processing of those bits of paper. But it's incredibly fair. The most efficient way is that we don't pay you anything and that's the end of it. That's just not very fair. So there's a trade-off between efficiency and equity. And so what we're trying to do in this policy is propose for you some ways to come to a mechanism that you think meets your needs, given your the range of duties that you're going to undertake for the year. I'll just walk you briefly through the 4 options that we have in here and give you some of the background to the thinking on these. Option A, which is on page 8, was about recognising that councillors from TT and MP travel a great deal further than councillors from TK, just for the core meetings, let alone any others. And so what was considered was that mileage would be paid to those councillors and all other councillors, i.e. TK councillors, would get a one-off figure. And there is a one-off figure proposed there that would be paid as a tax-free allowance, and it would in fact be paid monthly. Just for your information, that need not be the one-off figure. If you decided you liked this option, providing there was a bit more in the pot, that could be made the case. Option B was simply to do one-off payments for everybody. And this definitely, goes very close to the efficiency goal. We just put you in the payroll system, and every month you'll get some more of your tax-free allowance. And again, we came up with some numbers. There was some discussion this morning that points out these figures aren't sufficiently high, given the kinds of mileage that might be done. And so I've had a talk with one of our finance people, and we think that these figures could come up. These figures could go up, but they would still be one-off, basically lump sum figures, as option B. Option C is that we retain the status quo, and if you turn to page 8(3), you'll see the current expenses policy. It's a little dated in its language. It refers to facsimile paper, and good luck if anybody still uses that. But essentially, that's the other component of it. And then option D was kind of an update of that, so that you still get paid your mileage, you still get reimbursement for conferences, which is in fact covered by everything. But that also we would just update some of the language on that. I guess the point I haven't yet made is that it would always be the case that for councillors attending council authorised conferences, courses, seminars, training programs, all of the registrations, your flights, your accommodation should be booked and paid for using council's corporate booking system. There are some real savings for us in using that system rather than you doing it at home. And also we can provide council pool cars for travel, and where that travel was going to be for several hours, we would undertake to provide a large car suitable to the status of councillors. Perhaps I might take questions, Your Worship.
I need to go onto the table.
Webcam's on, team.
At least we're all free.
Okay, Councillor Mitchell.
Helen, just the one-off payment. What did you use to get to that formula? Like the figure, was it based on last year's, the history of the last triennium?
Unfortunately, I can't give you an answer to that because the Mr. Menhennet is away this week. But I put in the numbers he told me.
The reason this is probably on the table, and we need to talk about it. I mean, a lot of us in this room are employees. I'm an employee and what have you. Has lots of bits of paper flight around here for people to claim mileage to come 4 kilometres or 5 kilometres, basically to work. You were employees. You applied for a job. You got the job by way of election and what have you. I can appreciate people coming in from Mangakino and Turangi. I can appreciate going out of town to conferences and what have you. We do have pool cars. We do have a car policy in council. and the policy is it must have a 4 or 5 star safety rating, it must have all sorts of things, because we are, like anybody else, responsible employees. So the quality of cars is there. I think what it's trying to do is streamline a process that we need to be as lean and mean as we possibly can going forward. There's a lot of work for the pay clerk is working out all these claims for mileages left, right and centre. So I think there's an attempt at a simplification here, and you need to discuss it. If we could have some more input into this, we're staff that are just looking for direction. You are governance, you make the decisions. Councillor Mincher.
Once again, Rick, just obviously without Alan's input, it's just the history might show the true cost, like obviously Barry was talking earlier, the true cost of transport, and the figures must be there for us to see, to say, hey, there's the average claim last year. It gives us more idea that for us newcomers, we don't want to sort of sell ourselves cheap or go the other way as well. So.
Well, yeah, it's up to you. We had council. It is the right of a councillor set by the auditor's office. Is it the auditor's office? Who sets the rules?
On this regard, it's the remuneration.
Remuneration authority.
Remuneration authorities say that a councillor can claim mileage to come to and from work from his house at 70 cents a k. All they're trying to do here is just make one payment, so you're not claiming every 5 minutes and filling out bits of paper, as I understand it. Ms. Gilbert.
Yes, in fact, the Remuneration Authority has to approve the policy that you recommend, and any of the proposed policies we would expect them to approve, because we wouldn't waste your time otherwise. If I might just come back to your point, Councillor Mincher, about the history, the difficulty in identifying the costs that a council might expect to have to address is that the last council had a different governance structure. There were a number of councillors who made no claims at all for mileage, and there were other councillors who they made claims, but I have no idea if they claimed everything. I only know what they did claim. And so we've got some real challenges when we looked at the numbers to try and work out, well, what did that relate to? When I looked at what mileage was claimed, for example, by Councillor Ormsby, who had a role as the Deputy Mayor, had a community board role, was also the chair of the R&H committee, it then was incredibly difficult to work out what usefully could I take from that to tell you about. And so I'm actually not trying to hide anything. It's just that the range is from 0 to a big number, and it related to a different job.
I think for the newcomers, obviously it's new for us, so the figure isn't so important. So I think it comes back to Councillor Downard, Hickling and people to sort of have more idea for us whether that's a realistic figure for them. Personally, I'm all for the simplification. It's like a great way to do it. It's nice and simple, I totally agree, but obviously the history, they've got more idea how it sits with those three.
I might be able to add something to this because I just did a few figures on the back of an envelope here, and I would estimate that as a councillor from Turangi, I'm likely to be travelling up here approximately 60 times this year and back, given the things I'm involved with. So at the current rate of mileage, that would be somewhere between $4,500 to $4,500 perhaps of claims for those expenses. So I'm open to either way of doing it, but as it stands at the moment, and I note that it was only a suggested $1,500, that would leave me, as an example, seriously out of pocket for operating a vehicle to perform my duties as a councillor. But I'm open to both ways of doing it, but I just wanted to kind of give people some baseline estimate.
I can say that 2 councillors that were in this TKEP ward got awarded 3,000 for mileage in the last financial year. So it gives you a good indication they're coming from this ward and you're coming from that ward. So.
I hesitate to say this, and I hope I don't appear mercenary, but you seem to have catered for the people that live in Mangakino and the people that live in the borough. I live in a lovely place called Kinloch, so I don't quite know where I stand in all this sort of thing. Do I have to move one way or the other, or can I stay where I am?
Well, I would say that silly question, because we're not going to pay moving expenses as well as stay in Kinloch, and consider that we mentioned, and it says in your agenda item, outside the town limits, and Kinloch definitely isn't inside the town limits, so you're also covered there.
I think it's sorry, Mayor.
Councillor Downer.
I think it's important too. I mean, you know, there's a certain group of us that have got businesses, and you know, the businesses pay the petrol and stuff like that. There's other people in here that you know, haven't got those businesses, and I think, you know, are we trying to penny pinch a little bit too much on examples like fuel costs, which are a cost to each councillor, when we have saved an awful lot of money, and I'm sure in the fuel cost already by not so many Ks being claimed when they shouldn't be, and also with TKMP we got rid of that committee, got rid of all those people coming to those meetings and travel costs and stuff like that. So I think the big picture and the restructuring that we've had as a full council now, we've had huge savings. So, you know, I think it's fair that, you know, that you know, whatever system that we come up to, that everyone's catered for in their travel costs and the use of their car.
Yeah, and just for my 5 pence worth, I think that we have to lead by example. We want this council to be fiscally prudent, and we want to slimline things. And if you expect council and employees and that to do that, you have to lead by example. I think that in the case of Kinloch, Mangakino, Turangi, or anywhere outside the town borough, people travelling in should be reimbursed at the original status quo. I think for the members that live in town coming back and forth to council 2 or 3 or 4 times a week, there should be one set amount for the year, so we can just get rid of some of this paperwork and just it just takes hours to sort them out sometimes. It really does, but there must be a reasonable fair amount just for likes of myself, or Councillor Hickling, or Councillor Johnson, or Councillor Kirk, and yourself, Councillor Downard, Minter, who live in town here, get one payment to run your car. If you're going outside of town on council business, you get reimbursed, or you use a pool car out the back. Is there some equitable?
Just answer my question, but it's just not written in here like that. But you just answered it. That if you're based in Taupo but you travel to Turangi or to Mangakino, which we're going to be doing because we've all agreed to hold full council meetings in the different areas, then the same goes the other way.
Yeah, it does. And in a case like that, though, we're going to hold the next council meeting in Turangi because we want to get round the district. We are, but I would sincerely hope that 2 or 3 you'll be in my car and the rest will be in our council minibus or something. But if you're travelling outside the area on general council business, I believe you should be reimbursed at the rate that's set by the Remuneration Authority. I just believe it would simplify things for staff reading this, that if you local inside the Taupo borough people had one payment per year, it'd be a lot easier than claiming 70 cents a mile every time you move. Kilometre, sorry. Councillor Henderson?
Just comment on that set fee for the councillors who are up here. I looked at that too and thought that was somewhat inadequate, because I mean there is a real cost to councillors who live up here as well to get around on council business, and that the $360 current annual fee I think is very low, because essentially what's happening there is you've got councillors and they may choose to do that, but using their own personal businesses or finances to subsidise the council
Let me be
work.
the devil's advocate, because I said we'll go till 3, and if we can't get a consensus, we'll move it and we'll workshop it again. But let me just put the devil's advocate in. There's some businesses in town, including my own, that have 15 employees, and I don't pay anybody to get to work. Councillor Kipper.
Just going to say that I actually favoured option D. Nobody's actually picked an option, but I know of no other corporate or small business or government agency that does not assess accounts and pay the employees or whatever by their claims. It would be nice to say we could have a lump sum and make the administration a lot more cost effective. Only thing I don't agree with are obviously the lump sum amounts.
Okay, well I think we'd break at 3 o'clock for a cup of tea. I don't think we should push this much further. I think we should do a bit more work on this. I think also we've moved a couple of items today to be workshopped. I think it's another item that staff need to just come back and maybe build some more clarity around it. At a workshop, if at that workshop we still can't move forward, we will stick with the status quo, but we won't make a decision today, so we'll move that to a workshop as well, where we can. Do we have to do a resolution to do that? We've done 2 other items today by request. requesting at the next workshop that we have something set aside to re-workshop this issue.
I think it's simply there's not enough information to make a decision.
And standing orders are still to one side, sir. So anybody in the gallery who would like to use our tea room for a cup of tea or something, you're more than welcome.